we are going to talk, though, about festivals with big kids. So let's start by, I use our Planning for Peace journal for anything school related and anything Waldorf related, and I use it for festival planning because there's a nice festival planner in here. And if you're on our regular newsletter, you'll get a copy, and you're not a Planning for Peace member or Thinking, Feeling, Willing member, you'll get a copy of the festival planner in your email this week. We'll send that out to you. And I use it, it's not rocket science. There are just a few concepts that, that I use it for, as far as like how to pull in my own learning and my own thoughts about festivals. And we have another video on like festivals in general. And this is really going to focus more on big kids and big kid festivals and how we can pull those big kids in, and in turn also really examine how we're looking at things, and just sort of what it is that we are trying to gain from festivals. So I hope that you've come with questions if you have questions. First of all, one of the things that I do when I am planning a festival, and I'm just going to kind of look at our festival planner. So our festival planner, the first question, or the second question here, is what does this festival mean to me? What do I want to take away from celebrating it? And really and truly, that's kind of what your big kids are starting to ask. And I would say by about 12, 10, they're still having a good time sword fighting, and even at 12, they are. Especially the boys will be having a good time sword fighting. Girls too, of course. I definitely have some girl sword fighters as well. But as far as like starting to go deeper, they're starting to think a little bit more by 12, and by 14 especially, they're going to be thinking more about what is it that we're celebrating, and why is it important, and why do you make me make dragon bread with you every year, and all of those things. And so if your older child is your youngest child, then it's changing for you, like in general, across the board. It's changing for you completely in your home. It's changing for you as far as probably how you're looking at festivals, because you don't have a little one anymore. But if you have a younger one and one in the middle, I think that this is a perfect opportunity for that one that's older to be able to reflect, and then also help you with festivals for the younger children as well. So for us, we usually do our festivals at our co-op, and so when we're celebrating these things, we're celebrating them in a group. But that's not always been the case. So for many years, we're solo and just had us, and didn't have friends nearby. And so when we were doing it solo, we would just talk about the festival, and then do some sort of family celebration that was just us. But in our co-op setting, we have the opportunity to have many children. Our co-op has about 40 children, 42, I think. 42 is our current count right now. And so it is definitely a challenge when you have a lot of kids. But those older kids in our co-op are really starting to look at things differently. And so we want to be able to sort of reach them. And I always get this question about michaelmas, especially when we're talking about slaying dragons, and sort of what that means, and how we bring it to the littler kids, and that meaning of that dragon sort of changes. It changes from when they're little, they want to redeem that dragon, but when they're older, we have to really work to slay that dragon. So the bigger kids are all about slaying the dragon, and that's really where they should be. They should be in that space of vanquishing things, because the thing about the dragon is the dragon sort of shows what our weaknesses are, or maybe things that we're struggling with, and we want to be able to extinguish those. So michaelmas is in many ways like Lent on the other end. And so on the michaelmas end, you're giving something up. You're giving, especially, and of course we don't bring this to the little ones. I don't even really bring this concept to kids that are much younger than 9 or 10. I prefer to bring it more to the older children, like 12, 14 and up. But as parents or as adults, we're also looking at like how do we rid ourselves of habits that we'd like to give up, that we'd like to hand over, and hand over to the universe, hand over to God, whatever your your noun is for that universal energy. For us, it's God. And so what are we handing over to God? What things do we have um, that we are struggling with, that we just want to hand over and not struggle with anymore? And so that's really where I come to with the bigger kids. We talk about that. We talk about maybe habits that they are wanting to either break or soften or sort through, so that they don't feel like negative habits, or maybe there's fear that they've got going on that they'd like to get rid of, so that they feel stronger and more confident in something. So a lot of these things come out with the preteens, like the confidence issues and things like that. And so festivals become a way to connect with them without making them talk, because they don't want to talk. Which is really kind of funny. They want to talk, they just don't want to talk about that. And so when we're going through this time period with them, the festivals are like a golden time period to be able to bring in these heavier topics, and be able to help them sort through them without making them bare their soul to us, which is something that they really don't want to do when they're 12, not so much, but definitely by 13, 14, 15. And then they start to come back around a little bit, and they want to talk a little bit more about their feelings, and sort of there's this ebb and flow. And it definitely depends on whether or not they're a boy or a girl. All the children are very different in that respect, but festivals become a nice way to be able to bring concepts to them, just like when they were little. And just like as they were growing that way, they're more heady now, and so it's a more heady concept, and more heart related, and more heart centered, and definitely more feeling centered. So with the festivals that we have coming up, fall is kind of festival season in Waldorf land, and so I thought it was a really good idea to sort of bring this topic up, because I think that planning for these festivals, if you're planning for bigger kids with bigger kids in mind, is a little bit different, and you want to make sure that you give a good amount of information, but you're also not like feeding them what you think that they need to be thinking about. So one of the things that I would say maybe to an older child, maybe to a 12, 14-year-old, is this festival is about and we'll talk about michaelmas. This festival is about slaying dragons, and sometimes we have these inner dragons that we just don't feel good about having anymore. We just want to get rid of them. And so this is a really good time to be meditative, or to pray about sort of getting rid of those dragons. And I don't go really a whole lot deeper on that. We just sort of talk about it a little bit, and they see me studying about it. They might see me spending time in prayer and meditation about it. They might see me drawing about it or journaling about it for myself. And so still they're really watching us. Those early teenagers, and I think even the older teens, even though they think we don't know anything. They don't know anything. We don't know anything, do we, honey? Nothing. Nothing. Even though they don't think we know anything, they're still watching us. They're still watching us. They're still intent on knowing what it is that we're doing. And so, I like to let them see me do some journaling, let them see me do some reflecting on those things, because it allows them to sort of have permission to do that themselves. So with that festival, if I just had older kids, then we would still definitely bake dragon bread, and we would still sort of talk about it, and I might tease them and get a sword out and play a little bit, but I might also just really talk about, like what is this meaning to us? And then we might, at a festival dinner, join hands and talk about, what it is that we have hopes for with our slain dragons, what it is that we hope to gain from moving to this next place. So definitely that would be an example for Michaelmas. For Martinmas, where we're talking about sort of bringing the love of being able to take care of others, and sort of, because Martinmas is this beautiful story about this young man who became a soldier. Sorry, I had something in my eye, you guys. Sorry. this young man that became a soldier, and he didn't want to become a soldier. He wanted to be a monk, be a priest, and help people. And so he becomes a soldier, and because his dad wanted him to. It's a good story for teenagers, a really good story for teenagers about what it is that we want to do in life versus what our parents want us to do. And not in a way of, well, don't do what I tell you to do, but in a way of like becoming, in a way of helping them understand that, just because mom would love to see you go to college and become a doctor, that doesn't mean that's what you have to do. I want you to do stuff that makes you happy. So the whole festival is in so many ways. While it is a festival about giving, it's also a festival about sort of honoring what is your own, and honoring what you feel is your destiny inside. And so we focus on that piece as well as the piece about serving others. So in this, Martin finds a beggar on the side of the road, gives him half of his cloak to warm himself, takes him to the town, like does all of these things to sort of help serve this man. And he has this dream that this man is Christ, and that he served the Christ child. And so from this, it's this deep piece of serving. And so we like to do a lot of serving in November, whether it be gathering toys that are no longer needed that we can take to Goodwill, or we like to use Deseret Industries just because it's not just the Mormon in me coming out, but I know where the stuff from Deseret Industries goes. I know that people don't get paid for that. The only people that get paid are like the people in the store and the people that manage that stuff. And what is amazing to me about that is that's a great way for people that are having struggles getting a job. They start there, and we had this really good friend whose daughter really struggled with anxiety, so much so she could not get a job. She could not hold a job. And so she started at Deseret Industries here in San Diego, and they coached her through that anxiety, and they really worked with her so that she could work with customers. And now she's a security guard, which is so funny to me because she doesn't talk very much, but she's really tall, and so I think she's super intimidating. And anyway, I just think it's kind of funny. But as far as Deseret Industries is where we end up taking our stuff, just because we know where it goes. We know I don't have to worry about the financial stuff when it comes to like where the money is going and all of that. And I know it's going directly to help people. So if you don't have a Deseret Industries in your area, just research the charities that you're giving stuff to. But we end up giving, whether it be toys, clothes. We do a lot of like going through and purging in November and getting rid of things and taking them. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just about stuff we want to get rid of, right? It's also about sort of giving of our time, giving of our resources in a way that it's a sacrifice, and it doesn't mean that it has to hurt, but it's definitely a sacrifice. And so there's a difference between it needing to hurt and it being a sacrifice. We're asked to give as a sacrifice, and so that might mean a sacrifice of our time. It might mean that we spend our own money to buy a loaf of bread to make sandwiches for the homeless. It might mean that we are sacrificing our time by going and serving, whether it be the homeless or Eric and Samuel regularly go and help this older gentleman in our congregation. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be somebody you know, but it's great if it is somebody you know. So we spend a lot of time in service, and also talking about what it is that we want out of life and how we want to make an impact. And so when you've got these older kids, don't forget to utilize these festivals, because it's a huge opportunity for you to really be able to teach them and for them to sort of open their mind to these things. And it sticks with them. I have to tell you, I grew up as a child that celebrated festivals. My mom, I grew up in Germany, went to a little Waldorf school, and my mom was always very good about bringing those festivals home with us when we moved back to the United States. And so I always sort of had some sort of festival life and some sort of reflection. And I grew up Catholic too, so that allowed that to come back in. And I'm not Catholic now, and so what we do is we really make sure that when there are saints that we really want to utilize for their for their qualities of their lives. I make sure that they're well researched, and the ones that we celebrate in Waldorf as festivals are some amazing ones that we can really bring to our children. And I have so much fun with the older kids when we bring festivals to them. Another one, now I will say St. Nicholas is just St. Nicholas. We talk about the giving nature of St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas comes for everyone, even if you're a big kid. As long as you believe, you receive. And so that's the way we feel in our house. St. Nicholas is our Santa Claus, and so he is always somebody that comes. And while we reflect on that is more like a fun holiday for kids, and I always tend to keep it that way. But I'll also look at like Santa Lucia that's coming up as well. That's the middle of December. And oh my goodness, it's August and I'm talking about December, but I know it's coming. It'll be here before you all know it. And I missed All Souls Day from November 1st. We definitely use that. Probably not as not the same way a Latin American culture would with the Dia de los Muertos, but we definitely talk about it in a very beautiful way to honor our ancestors. It's a great time to do family history work. It's a great time to talk about these people that came before us and what their stories were. And the older kids eat that up. Even when we don't think they're eating it up, they really do. When it comes to, let me get back to St. Lucy. When it comes to St. Lucy, that's another festival of doing not what your parents wanted you to do as far as your life. One of the stories is that she really didn't want to marry, and her parents wanted her to marry, and she really just wanted to serve God, and that's what she just wanted to serve. And the story goes that, her father said, the next man you see is the man that you need to marry. So she plucked her eyes out. She said, I'm not going to have any of that. It's not happening. So if I'm blind, then I can't see anybody. And then she just lived her life serving. So I don't share that graphic story generally with the little ones. We talk just about serving. But those older kids, you can talk about the more graphic legends or stories that came along with some of the saints. And so we've got those stories. I was trying to think. Definitely, we absolutely bring the solstices in, and they are, even from if you're Christian, you're like, I don't want to do those solstices and the equinoxes. I definitely do it a little bit differently. I used to be pagan, so we used to totally celebrate those solstices and totally really get into it. And I still get into it as a point of renewal and as a marking of the year, and as a welcoming, so that winter solstice is a welcoming of the light in much the same way that Christmas Day is welcoming the light of Christ. And so very tied together. And I think that you can really bring that to big kids. You've got big kids that are really working on understanding their faith and understanding where they stand with that, and really diving into those stories. That's a perfect time to sort of bring some of that together. And then you've got, let's see, 3 Kings after that. I'm probably missing some. So if I'm missing one, please shout. I did not take any notes because a lot of this stuff I could talk about in my sleep, and I probably do talk about it in my sleep. Do I talk about this in my sleep, Eric?
No.
He says no, but I don't know that I trust him. If it's on my mind, it's like coming out of my mouth when I'm sleeping. But let's see, 3 Kings would be next. And so 3 Kings is another time of like giving and remembering that we are amazing people and that we can do amazing things. And in that, like with the younger child, we would talk about the gifts that were taken to the Christ child. But when we're older, I talk about the gifts that we have. We all have these amazing gifts. Some of us are talented artists. Some of us have the gift of discernment and intuition. Some of us have the gift of knowledge. Some of us, we're all gifted in so many ways, and it's a perfect time to really celebrate those gifts and talk about those gifts and realize those gifts. And it's a perfect time too, if you've got a child that might be thinking, God didn't give me any gifts. You can help them sort of realize those gifts and help them to know that sometimes those gifts unfold over time. I definitely don't think that when I was 16 years old, I knew I have the gifts that I have now. And so that's a building, and it's an opening and a blossoming, and how it takes time. And I always talk about, sometimes those gifts and the fullness of those gifts are about, as we grow, we open, and so we talk about that, and it allows them then to really start looking for their gifts and really start looking around them, paying more attention to themselves in a time that is incredibly stressful for them. And so, I really want to pay very much attention to that at that period. And we have a comment over here. Christina says, I love that you are so open-minded and acknowledge festivals outside of your respective faith. You are a wonderful example. Thank you. I try to always do that. I really feel very strongly that we have so much to learn from each other. If we would just look at what we have in common, and look at what good things we can pull from other cultures and even other faiths, goodness, we would be such a happier people. Becca says, I agree with this. She's very open and accepting and open-minded in this way. I love that about her. Well, I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Do we have any comments on YouTube, Daddy? Okay, let's keep going then. Okay, so let's see. After Three Kings. Oh, my birthday. My birthday is February 2nd, which is also Brigid and Groundhog's Day for Americans. I'm not sure what they call it on the other side of the pond. If I have any people on the other side of the pond that are watching, I know y'all don't call it Groundhog's Day. I think you do something different. But it is, like I said, the most important part of that day is it's my birthday. But it is also Candlemas. And so, personally, I am not talking to my children about what else they want to learn from that festival a lot. I'm just talking about it being my birthday. Yeah. Anyway, so one of the things, though, that you can take from it is definitely that growing light. And so we talk about the light that's growing. It sits opposite of Martinmas on the calendar. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, of course, they're going to be flipped. So you've got, we're coming out of winter, you're doing something much different. And so we're coming out of this winter space and really looking at and looking forward to the renewal that comes with the spring equinox and Easter, that renewal space and renewal time. And so I remember when we lived in Utah and Idaho, it was really sad still on my birthday. Like, of course there's happiness because it's my birthday, but it's still like freakishly cold and dark and cold and snow, and I might have some PTSD about snow, you guys. My kids, not my bigger kids, but my littler ones are like, or just Soraya. She's like, I really just want to go and see it. And I'm like, no, sorry. Maybe if it snows in Julian, which is like an hour from San Diego up in the hills where they get like this much snow, maybe we'll go check it out in Julian. Or my plan has always been to sort of take her to Yellowstone and drop her off and leave her there for about 10 minutes longer than she should be. And then she'll never want to see snow again. It's just me being silly. Becca says, I see celebrating festivals from other cultures as a way to combat the consumerism that is associated with American holidays. Yes, ma'am. There's something to be said for observing events which aren't commercially marketed to children. Yes, agreed. And so, like, when we're looking at it for the big kids, I think that's definitely something that we bring in. My big kids will recognize, obviously, the consumerism because that's where their minds are. Their minds are in not keeping up with the Joneses, but they're noticing the Joneses, like, and what the Joneses are doing. And so we want to sort of be able to talk about the root and really talk about the strength that comes from those festivals and where that shows up in our lives. So, definitely with regards to Candlemas, like in all seriousness, we dip candles on that day or around that day because that day is my birthday. Just in case you don't know, February 2nd. I'm just kidding. So no, we definitely that week we'll dip candles and we'll talk about this inner light that lives within us, this inner light that we have the responsibility as humans to let shine. that we have the responsibility to bring forward. And sometimes we shy away from that responsibility because it's something that might feel a little scary. But really, and I tie it back to scriptures about the talents. We've got these talents, and if we don't utilize them, we lose them. And that's about anything. I mean, that's kind of common sense. If you don't play piano for 20 years, guess what? You're going to forget. You're not gonna, maybe not forget how to play the piano, but man, it's going to take you a while to get back to playing the piano. You have to really practice at it. Where if you just practiced the whole time or brought it out, made it brighter, then it would continue to shine within you. So we talk all about this concept of letting your inner light shine. And it really helps us as adults. I think that as adults, having older children that are going through the festivals, and sort of as we're watching it change for them, it becomes very much so a time for us to remember to reflect as well. And for us to remember that it's necessary for us to keep going with these things. So let's see, after my birthday, Candlemas, we have the spring equinox. And so again, the spring equinox and Easter sort of sit near each other usually. Sometimes they're right back to back. And Easter, it's so funny because for those who think that Easter is just like made up by some ecclesiastical entity, it's really not. It's the first Sunday after the equinox, after the full moon. And so it has very much a root for the date itself in old world traditions, in old pagan traditions. And so it behooves us to go, that's interesting. And really look at them as a festival that belongs together. So in pagan traditions and other world cultures, it's very much about this rebirth of what's going on. The sun is getting stronger, and we have this birth of the sun, but it's this regeneration, this so much so of coming again. And that's really what Easter is, this resurrection of things. And flowers are blooming and things are coming. And so the kids they're noticing. And if they're not noticing, like for the children that want to keep their nose in a book, you might have to poke at them and say, hey, let's go for a walk and notice nature. Do you have something, Daddy?
Oh, a comment. Thank you for going through the significance and connections between the festivals. I don't have big kids yet, but this is also helping me appreciate them in a more meaningful way.
Oh, you're welcome. That's a great comment. And actually, we have other videos on festivals as well. And so hunt for those. I think they're in the Monday videos section as well. I think that, and if you are a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member, there's a whole section, there's a whole mom lesson on festivals. Festivals are just like super dear to me, and they really help mark our year, and it just really is. It really is a very beautiful way to really reflect. And in this time where we have so much apathy about what goes on around us, festivals are a great way to keep that soul life alive for us. On a very basic foundational level, when we keep our soul enlivened and our soul fed, we sleep better. We sleep better. We interact with our other human beings better. We have to but we have to cultivate it. We have to pay attention to it. And I think it's a really good idea to teach our kids to be cultivating it. And now as they're maybe going through those teen years, it's important to teach them now, because guess what? They're going to move out eventually. They are, I promise. And it's weird, but they are. They're going to move out, and then you don't have any influence on them anymore. Not like that. Not like you do now. So our hope is then when they move out, that they carry that with them, that they might see your pictures on Instagram or on Facebook of you celebrating and you making dragon bread with the younger ones, and go, hey, wait a minute, can I come over and make dragon bread with you? Or how did you, like, even my son that's not lived with us since he was 14, he'll still ask, hey, what did you guys do for, like, you could tell there's this little prick in the back of his head that he's like, that was really fun. I miss making that. I miss sword fighting. I miss, he misses that. And so we always talk about what we've done with our bigger kids, and the ones that don't live here, and the ones that do live in San Diego tend to come and hang out with us. But we'll see. That's going to change for us this year. as we send off another one. And it feels kind of odd. Eric and I were remarking yesterday about how different it will feel. Eleanor is house sitting this week, and so she's not here at all, and it feels kind of different, but it's our new normal because she's getting ready to move out, and so it's definitely different, but it's also good. It's also very good. It's yeah. So anyway, back to where I was before I fall into a puddle of tears. So let's see. I talked about the spring equinox and Easter. Definitely, from a Christian perspective, those strong pieces of resurrection, and we really like to, in our faith, we, rather than just focusing on the piece that is such a sad view of how humanity can treat humanity, we try to focus on Christ's life. We try to focus on what he brought us in his ministry, and then also what he brought us afterwards. The crucifixion is definitely a focal point, but not the only focal point, because it can be, it is such while it is a wonderful thing, it's also a sad thing. And so we really try to focus on the living Christ. That's really works for us, and for our faith practice. It really works to definitely bring that piece of what's living and what continues to live beyond the grave. And so then from a non-Christian perspective, we're looking at sort of this time of renewal, and it sits opposite of some of those vanquishing, sits opposite of like getting rid of dragons. You're welcoming in new things. You're welcoming in things you see around you. You're welcoming in these hopefully new good habits. It's a great time to start things. It's a great time. That's why you always hear the spring cleaning thing. It's a great time to clean things out and be able to allow things. Okay, what's next? I guess the summer solstice is next. No, there's Mayday. So Mayday with big kids can be pornographic if you're not careful. I'm just teasing. Really, no, Mayday with big kids you got to talk about what Mayday is. You have to talk about it. The symbolism of the pole, and the symbolism of what we're doing, the dance that we're doing, the symbolism of, and I would not have a graphic conversation with a 12-year-old for sure. But I would talk about the regenerating, what we're celebrating, this new life, this new strength that started with the equinox, but now it's blooming all around us, and we're really seeing it everywhere, and we're really in the thick of seeing baby lambs and baby birds and all of these things, and everything's coming back to life, and sort of what that means. And with an older child, an even older child, then you can talk about like the symbolism. What's the maypole symbolize? What are all those symbolisms? And why do we dance the maypole? And what is that all symbolic of? And so you could definitely conquer that in a tactful conversation. There is a very good depiction and a fun little song. You probably just look up the song on YouTube from the movie The Wicker Man, which is one of my favorite movies. The old one, not the new one. One of my favorite movies, like from a Christian perspective, to remind me to not be self-righteous, and from a pagan perspective of just the beauty of how they celebrate the seasons, even though it's a little bit deranged. It is a horror movie, but there is this fun little song that is very accurate in the as far as like what Mayday is. And so if you look up on YouTube, look up The Wicker Man Mayday Maypole Dance, and you listen to the song. So that would be a great little segue into, let's talk about the symbolism of the maypole. Okay, summer solstice would be next. And summer solstice is just an amazing midsummer for those of us in the northern hemisphere. And the southern hemisphere, it's a little bit different. It's obviously what our winter solstice is. But again, it's about light, and it's about, so we don't focus on the sun. We focus on, because it's dying now, and it's going from being so bright and so big, biggest, longest day of the year, to now it'll start going. And so so we talk about that a little bit, but we talk more about sort of enjoying this time and enjoying the summer of our lives, and really having a good time in that time period. Do you have anything over there, Daddy? Okay. What's after that? There's definitely the harvest, and there's some pagan festivals that are in the summer that we don't do so much with our co-op. We definitely talk about the harvest festivals and do some harvest stuff. But then we're right back to Michaelmas again. And so I really hope that this little walk through the festivals helps you to like reimagine it for your older kids. I think that, and for yourselves, if it's something that you've been thinking about, I don't know how I'm going to bring these festivals, I don't know what, I'm struggling with believing in them. You don't have to, don't celebrate what you don't believe in, or don't celebrate what doesn't resonate with you. Don't do it just to do it. I think that happens in Waldorf culture a lot. Doing it just to do it is not a good idea. Only do it because it speaks to you. And so, it might be that you stand on the sidelines this first year and you're just studying yourself, and maybe you're only bringing pieces here and there or things that feel comfortable to you. But definitely make sure that you feel a connection with these festivals before you're bringing them. And if you don't feel a connection, you're just trying to really sort it out, then look for a connection. You can always, in our Ask Melissa group, and now it's Ask Melissa and Eric, because he's over there too. Aren't you, dear? He's over there too. He's giving me a thumbs up, but you can't see him because he's behind the camera. So he's over there too. So you can always ask a dad's perspective question. So if you've got husbands that want to join, partners that want to join, you're welcome to have them join and ask dad questions as well. And we don't just tackle homeschooling topics. That group is intended for anything that you want our opinion on. And right now it's dominated mostly with homeschool stuff and some parenting stuff. There's going to be more parenting people that are going to be coming over that aren't homeschoolers. And so we want to sort of make sure that it's a group that's open to everybody. But if you've got like some festival questions and you really want to sort of sort through some of that, please feel free to ask us over there. We are happy to answer. And if you're catching us on Instagram and you've got some questions, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to answer. And the same with Facebook. You're welcome to message me as well. So I make sure you're on our Waldorf Essentials newsletter. Becca says, do you have any suggestions for easing in to celebrating festivals when it hasn't already been part of your family culture? Yes. I would say pick one or two that really excite you and light your fire, and go from there. And then next year add in some more. If it doesn't live in you, your kids are going to know it. And the way I say, whenever we do something new, I go, hey, we're going to try something new, and it might crash and burn, but we're going to try it anyways, and I'm really excited about it, and then I work to make them excited about it. And so in order to make them excited about it, I have to, you got to be a good salesman or woman. So you want to, have a good time. If you've got little kids, you want to have some great stories, and you want to have something awesome that you're going to bake, and you want to talk about what the festival is. And so know your stuff. And I think that's really the most important thing, is to know your stuff. If you know your stuff, then they will listen, and they will be excited to listen. Okay, anything else? Oh, like I said, I didn't talk about Advent, but that's okay. I think that a lot of that might be self-explanatory, and if it's not, and you have questions, just pop over to the Ask Melissa group, and we'll talk about that there. You guys have a wonderful week.